So for today's math packet, we're going to do subtraction, which means takeaway. That means the number that we start with is going to be getting smaller by however many we take away. For instance, if I had 10 pieces of candy and I took away 2 of them, 10 minus 2 equals, how many would be left? So if we use our fingers for this one, which is easy, 10, let's take away 2. 1, 2, and we have 8 left, so the answer is 8. We're going to do subtraction today. In our math book, and it'd be your math packet, it's page 69, practice 3, subtracting without regrouping. And here you see the little boy at the top, and he's going to give you an idea. He said, I'm going to count backwards to find my answer. So he starts with 24 in his brain. Take away 2, count backwards 2. So 24, 23, 22. So the answer is 22. That is one way to do subtraction. Count backwards. So 1 through 6, you say the big number in your brain and then count backwards, and that's the answer. Now, if you find that that is very difficult for you, maybe mom or dad would make a special number line and you could use that number line just by counting backwards. The next part is to fill in the missing numbers, and that's right down here. 37 minus 4 equals. All right, so first it asks how many tens. There are 3 tens. And there's 7 ones in 37. And now you're going to take away 4 of them. 3 tens and 3 ones, because what you did was 7 minus 4 equals 3. So 3 tens and 3 ones is 33. And that is how you subtract, filling in the missing numbers. Now you have this one down here to do. Remember, tens, ones, subtract the ones. Tens, how many are left? And that's your total number. Sometimes that seems kind of confusing, but when you practice it a few times, I think it makes sense. And then they want to show you another way to do subtraction. So we have counting backwards, we have using the words tens and ones, and now we are going to use the problems where there's tens and ones in a column and subtract the ones below. The easiest way to show that to you is on my whiteboard here. Tens and ones. The number is 16 minus 2. So in the number 16, there's 1 10 and there's 6 ones. 16. Now you're going to take away 2 ones. So it has to be in the ones column. Now, you always start with the ones, and you're going to do the simple problem of 6 minus 2. So in your mind, think 6, take away 2. So you can count backwards. Maybe you already know the answer. 6 minus 2 is 4. Now you have this 10 right here that needs to be brought down because there's nothing to subtract. There's no other 10 there, so you're going to bring your 1 all the way down. Now you have 1 10 and 4 ones left. And what is the number? 1 4. How do we say that number? 1 4. 1 10, 4 ones. 14. That's right. So that's how you're going to do the next part of that page. So for your assignment today, it's page 69 and 70. Now, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to do a Zoom meeting. And I'm going to do that meeting from upstairs where I keep Alice in her aquarium so that you can see Alice and you can see her habitat here at my house. It's very similar to the one at school. And we're going to talk a little bit about the habitat that Alice needs to stay alive and some of the things she needs as a creature out in nature, what she would have to eat. and where she'd have to live. Now, when I got Alice, I actually got her from a pet store. But if Alice was in the wild, she'd live in a desert. Think about some of the things you would see in a desert. Well, you probably wouldn't see any kind of water running or even a little pool of water or a little tiny lake, no streams. Deserts are very dry, and that's the way Alice likes it, except for I have a little bowl of water in there, and we'll talk about that later. So in your yellow science folder, you should still have your yellow packet, My Science Notebook on Organisms. Alice is considered an organism. She's a creature that can live in nature if she's not a pet. So one of the things first graders study are organisms. Some are animals and some are plants. Now, I don't have this done on mine, but this page you've already done when we tried to grow the amaryllis this year. And remember, we had kind of a tough time. It grew beautiful leaves, but no blossom. So we have those pictures drawn in here. So turn to the next page after that, and what you're going to see is a page that looks like this. You're going to have to turn it sideways. My Living Thing. We're going to talk about Alice today. And in this, right in this spot, I'd like you to draw a picture of Alice. Down below, I'd like you to finish the sentence actually. I drew a, do you remember what kind of a lizard that Alice is? I drew a bearded dragon. Now on this line it says, I think it needs. We'll talk more about this in the Zoom meeting, but we have to write down the things that Alice would need to stay alive. Now the page after that looks kind of like a little cage, doesn't it? It almost looks like a little aquarium, but not as big. Up at the top of yours, it says woodland creatures. But Alice is not a woodland creature. We need to put desert because she's a desert creature. And then we're going to talk about in the Zoom meeting what her habitat looks like. And then I'd like you to draw the picture, the sand, and the other things that are in her aquarium. We'll look at that during the Zoom meeting. Now, if you don't come to the Zoom meeting because things are happening at your house, you don't have time, that's okay. Try to think about what it looked like in the classroom when we had Alice in the aquarium. See if you can remember some of the things that were in there. Another thing you could do is on the internet, you could look up bearded dragon and habitat, and they would probably be able to show you some pictures, and you can kind of adapt that for your aquarium. Please save this for later. We're not done with it yet. Don't hand it in yet. This will be a packet that would probably hand in at the end of the year. So if you cannot find that packet, if that didn't come home in your yellow folder when we gathered all the work, sometimes weird things happen. You can just draw it on a plain piece of paper. Alice and her habitat.